Okay, thank you, Annan. Good evening, everyone. And as Annan said, welcome to this special Holocaust Memorial Day session. Welcome to you all, and in particular, welcome to Mrs. Rachel Goldman Miller. Really an honor to meet you, and on behalf of the whole community, thank you so much for agreeing to address us this evening and to share your experiences. Also, thank you, as always, Annan, for organizing these events and for leading on our Holocaust education. This is something so important for our community, for all of us to hear, and such a special opportunity for us to learn a little bit more and to hear another story about Holocaust experiences. So welcome to everyone. I'm going to hand over to Malcolm Cohen, who will be leading us on our Azkara, our memorial this evening, after which I'll hand back to Alan, who will take the rest of the evening forward and share the rest of the evening. So once again, welcome to everyone, and thank you to everyone for joining, and in particular, of course, to Mrs. Rachel Goldman Miller. Over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Good evening, everybody. So tradition has it, we're going to light a candle, and then I'm going to say the Kel Moli Rachamim, the memorial prayer for all our unfortunate brethren that were victims of the Shoah. Kel Moli Rachamim Dayan Amonos Vavi Yisomim Alenos Echeshev Sisapak Ledam Yisrael Shenishpach Kamoyim Hametzei Menucha Nechono.
Thank you. It was, sorry, Judith, I apologize to disturb you.
Off you go and enjoy it.
Carry on.
Al Kanefei Ashchino B'mahalos Kedoshim U'Yovarim Kezoyam Rokia Mirim U'Masivim Es Nishmo Yisrael Shel Rivavois Alfei Yisrael Anoshim v'noshim, yiladim v'yiladois, sheneregu v'nishchatu v'nishrefu, v'nechneku v'nikbaru chayim, v'arotzois, asher nogo bohen yad atzoyrer hagemani, u'gerurov. Kulam kedoshim u'diyorim u'bohem giyonim v'tzadikim arezeh alevonoi natirei ha'toiro b'gan Eden tiyei menucha v'som lochein ba'alo rachamim Yasdireim v'sei sekenof of li'olamim v'yitzror ha'chayim es nishmosom Adonai hu nachalo v'som v'yonuach v'shalom al mishkovom v'noimar amen.
Thank you very much, as always, Malcolm. Thank you. I'm delighted to formally introduce Mrs. Rachel Goldman Miller. Mrs. Miller was born in Paris in 1933, where her family had moved following rising anti-Semitism in Poland. She was one of 4 children born to Nathan and Helen Goldman. After Rachel's father was taken by the SS and French police, her mother sent her to a farm in the French countryside to live with a Catholic family. 3 days later, the Nazis invaded France. Her other family members were subsequently sent to various holding camps and ultimately transported to the Auschwitz extermination camp in 1942. Rachel lost her mother, father, 2 brothers, Adolf and Henri, and 1 sister, a total of 93 close relatives in the Holocaust. After the liberation, Rachel emigrated to the United States in 1946, where she lived in multiple foster homes in New York City. Rachel later married Milton in 1950, had 2 sons, Neil and Mark, both lawyers, and moved to Los Angeles, and then in 1994 to be near Neil, to St. Louis. Mark having tragically passed away from AIDS in 1992 at the young age of 35. Rachel's husband Milton sadly passed away on 30th of December 1997, the same day, 56 years later, that Rachel's father had been murdered by the Germans experimenting with various gases for later use in extermination camps. To honor the memory of Rachel's family who were murdered in the Holocaust, and the memory of more than the 6 million innocent people who died in the Nazi concentration camp, Rachel has continued to tell of her experiences in the St. Louis Holocaust Museum and around the United States, and now in this virtual world further afield on Zoom. Rachel is the consummate volunteer for many organizations and is the founder of a charity known as Shaving Israel, which is a major charity which benefits Israeli soldiers in need. I'm delighted and honored that Rachel has agreed to tell us of what she endured both before and after the war. And I hand over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everybody. Alan gave you a highlight of my life. I will go into more detail. As Alan told you, I was born in 1933, May 20th, 1933. I was a little girl.
You want to do the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I was a little girl and I was the baby. My father was a barber and it was a Sunday. That was the only day he was off. I was sitting on the buffet by the window and I heard him say to my mother, "It's beginning of doom." Why at the age of 16, at six years old, pardon me, it registered, but he said that was the beginning of doom. Oh my God, was he right? Was he right? I don't know whether he had communication with his family in Poland. All I can tell you is that he came from a family of 8. My mother came from a family of 13. Both of my grandmothers were living. One was 96, one was 89. I don't know whether they did or they didn't. As a child, we used to get together on Saturday night and we used to sing in 3 different languages. We sang in Yiddish, we sang in French, and we sang in Polish. It was wonderful. My father had a brother and a sister living in Paris. That's one of the reasons that he left Warsaw, Poland, because there was a lot of anti-Semitism and they wanted him to serve in the Polish army. And my mother had 2 brothers and they were very family oriented. Saturday night was the best night for me because we would get together with the family and my cousins. It was wonderful. Sunday morning, it was a Sunday morning in August, a beautiful, beautiful day. There was a lot of commotion going on. And I heard my father say, "It's the beginning of doom." Well, I'm repeating what he said, and he said it again. And with that, a Monsieur Martin that lived across the way came knocking at our door and said, "Monsieur Goldman, please come with me. They're picking up the Jews and taking them to a labor camp." My father did not say, "I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on." He went into the bedroom, took out a suitcase and started filling his suitcase and started to go across the yard to Monsieur Martin's apartment. When Monsieur Maurice, we were in building A, when Monsieur Maurice in building C told the police and the SS that my father was trying to run away. They picked him up right there in the yard. They came looking for my two brothers. Adolphe was 18, Henri was 16. I should have told you about our apartment. We had a 2-room apartment with a small kitchen. The dining room was a dining room during the day, and at night it converted. We had these folding beds. It converted to a bedroom, and my parents had their bedroom, and my brothers slept in the foyer. We had a toilet, but we had no running water. We lived on the first floor, and my mother had to go up to the second floor to get the water. So we had one of these huge white metal bathtub. My mother hid my two brothers under the bed. I think the inspector that came up decided that he did not want to see them. So on that day, my father was taken. My aunt, well, we called her Rose, but her name was also like mine. My name is actually Rachel, but people have trouble pronouncing it, so I changed it to Rachel, but it's Rachel. So my aunt's husband was born in a place called Drancy. In France, if you married a French citizen, the spouse automatically becomes a French citizen. My uncle heard what was going on. He started walking towards our house. In those days, only rich people had telephones, only rich people had cars. He was stopped in the street and they said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to visit my family." "What's your name?" "Salomon Yokovich." "Are you French?" He said, "Yes." Told the truth. "Drop your pants." And because he was circumcised, he too was taken on that day. So it was my father, my aunt's husband, Salomon, and my father's brother, Leon. They were taken to the camp called Drancy. With that, I'm going to show you some pictures.
Get it.
Hold on a minute.
We got to share screen. Okay.
I need help. I'm not very good with the computer, so I have my helper over here. I want to show you some pictures.
Do you need to enable us to share her screen?
Gary, can you do that?
It's done. It's just been enabled.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. 5. Okay, you should be good to go.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna change this picture because I want to come back. We'll come back to this because I was telling you about my father. This is a letter. This is a letter from my uncle to my aunt in the camp. He told her that he received the card and that everything was okay. This is my father right here, Nathan. Also received a card from his wife and Akoli. Akoli was food, nourriture, which they needed very badly. My father had a chance to get his things together, but my uncle didn't. So he's asking for all kinds of soaps and so forth and so on. They were able to send out letters in those days, and they were able to receive packages. I don't know what happened, but both became very sick. And I don't know how my aunt or my mother were able to get him out of the camp of Drancy. I don't know how they did that. They were taken to l'Hôpital Tenot, which was a French Catholic hospital. Now, an edict came out. Only the French Jews could be in that hospital. My father had to go to l'Hôpital Rothschild because that was on the left bank of Paris. And the good thing about it, we were allowed to see him 3 hours a week. My aunt would go, my mother would go one day, another time she would take my 2 brothers, another time she took my sister and I. I was so excited. We went on the 28th of December. My father was coming home New Year's Day. As far as I was concerned, we would have our get-togethers on Saturdays and everything would be the same. My mother went to see him on December 30th. He told her that at 10 o'clock in the morning, he was injected with something and he died in her arms Tuesday, December 30th, 1941 at 2 o'clock. My uncle, who was in l'Hôpital Tonneau, died, was injected at 10 o'clock and told my aunt, and he died in her arms Tuesday, December 30th at 2 o'clock. We couldn't find out how each one knew that they had died. And I'm looking for the grave. I'll come back to these. This is the grave where my father and my uncle are buried. It's right in there.
I'm sorry, I
Right there.
can't see anything.
What?
Rachel, we can't see the pictures. They're not sharing.
We're not seeing the pictures?
No, we're not seeing it.
Okay, hold on. How about, are you seeing their desktop now?
No.
No, we don't see, we've seen no pictures.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Let's hold on.
Do we have to do F5 again?
Okay, how about now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Are you seeing the pictures now?
Now we're seeing all the pictures.
Yes, we can see them now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, now you can, there you go.
okay. I wanted to show them the grave first,
Okay.
and then I'll come back. This is the grave for my father and my uncle. It's at the cemetery Bagneux in Paris. This is my aunt. This is me just before I was coming to the United States. This is my aunt's daughter who just passed away a few months ago. And this is my uncle's sister and his niece. And this is me and Arlette. Okay. I have to tell you, the house was never the same after they died. But before I continue, I want to show you pictures of my family so you know who they are. This is my Aunt Rachel. This is her sister Eva. And these are my paternal grandparents. And this is my brother Adolphe when he was little. This is my mother with her sister, my mother with one of her sisters. And I imagine this is a sister or a brother, and they were dressed for some kind of costume. This is my parents' engagement picture, and this is their wedding announcement. They were married in March of 1923. This is my mother with my brother Adolphe, my brother Henri, and my sister. This is my mother's picture, a sister. I have a lot of her pictures. She might have been one of the favorites, I don't know. This is my maternal grandmother with my sister. My sister was very beautiful. She had a wonderful soul and a wonderful heart. This is all Poland, by the way. This is my father. This is my mother. And this is my mother's brother, Aaron. He lived in Paris. I knew him. I don't remember his wife's name nor his children. And again, my maternal grandmother, Adolphe, Henri, and Sabine. And this is my mother with my father, my paternal grandmother, my two brothers, and my sister. I thought we were very poor, but maybe we were not as poor as I thought we were because we were in the country. This is my father. This is my father, my mother, my brother Adolphe, my brother Henri, my sister Sabine. This is me. This is me. This is Sabine, and this is me. And when I look at these pictures, I so enjoy them because as I mentioned before, my sister was so special. She was not only beautiful outside, she was beautiful on the inside. And the fact that my mother dressed us alike makes me feel so good that we shared that together. To this day, I still miss her. This is my mother in the country. This is my mother with my tante Rachel. This is my mother's other brother, Jules. This is my Aunt Fanny. And this is Michelle, their oldest son. And I unfortunately do not remember those beautiful three little faces. This is a school, it looks like a school picture for my two brothers. And this is us again in the country. And these are friends, and that's Adolphe, Henri, Sabine, and me. This was the old quarter in Paris prior to the war. It was a vibrant area. You could buy from a needle to a house. It had entertainment, it had grocery, it had everything you could possibly imagine. I haven't been back to France because I renounced my French citizenship. The French did all the dirty work for the Germans. And I got sick and tired. The more I learned about history, I decided I didn't want to have any part of it, even though I'm sorry I cannot go to my father's grave and my uncle's grave. But when I was there, it was about 2 blocks long. I know it has changed, the Marais district. I haven't been back there for 10 years. My father did not serve in the Polish army, but he served in the French army. This was the beginning of the doom. This was the day that French welcomed Hitler and his armies. This is Les Champs-Élysées, and that's l'Arc de Triomphe. You see the Germans over here. This was my older brother, Adolphe. This is my cousin, Hélène, my father's brother's daughter. And this is a friend of theirs.
No, because I accidentally touched her and I went to safe driving mode.
Pardon me, Alan? Is there a problem?
Someone unmuted themselves by mistake, but I think we're back on. Carry on, Rachel, carry on.
Okay. As I said, it's my brother. He's 18 years old. They were a threesome. And as you can see, it says Resistance Fighters. I'm very happy to hear and to know that my brothers, and actually Henri as well, were in the Resistance. I don't have a picture of Henri. Hélène was taken prisoner as a French Resistance fighter. She was tortured for 3 solid days. She's got 2 holes in between her breasts, compliments of the SS. She never revealed where she was bringing the 17 guns and the 17 false identifications that she was bringing to the resistance. Jean escaped Auschwitz once. He was recaptured in 43, late 43. He was in the march when Germany in 1944, when the war was ending for them, they started out with 100,000 men. Only 10,000 survived. John was one of them. He was decorated by Prime Minister Mitterrand. This is my brother Adolphe again with these people, resistance people. This is my Aunt Rachel when she came to the United States, her passport. This is her daughter, and this is her daughter when she was young. And this is the last picture of Sabine and I. As you can see, we're dressed alike. She had blonde hair and brown eyes. She was so beautiful and so wonderful. After my father died, my house was really so sad. There was no more get together with the family, no anything. School was coming to an end, and my mother said to me, Rachel, I'm going to send you to the country. Oh, I was so happy. I wanted to sing and I wanted everything. I wanted to be happy. I missed it so. The best thing is that Sabine was coming with me, my idol, and my best friend, Cecile. Cecile was not Jewish. She was the concierge's daughter. We went to a place called Mangeron. Sabine did not come with us because her birthday was July the 15th. My mother sent me away with Cecile on July the 13th. But before I went away, my mother said to me, Rachel, I'm going to give you a new name. Your new name is Christine, and you are not allowed to tell anyone that you're Jewish. The only ones that will know that you're Jewish is the farmer where you're going and Cecile. If I'd ever lied, I would have been punished. I accepted my mother's word because I knew I had already lost my father and I knew what a terrible thing it was. So I went away and we got to the farm, Cecile and I. It was a wonderful day for an day and a half. The kids were dancing, they were singing, and it was wonderful. A day and a half later, kids came up and they started to talk about this big raid that they're going to have in Paris. I started to cry and went to my bed. On July the 18th, I went to the bus to pick up Sabine. I had forgotten my doll, and she was supposed to bring my doll. Instead, Cecile's mother got off the bus. I said, where is Sabine? She says, oh, she went shopping. I said, shopping? How could she go shopping? She's supposed to be here. And when we make a promise in our family, we keep it. I said, and where's my doll? She said, oh, she didn't give it to me. Anyway, we started to walk towards the farm. And I ran in, I was 9 years old. And I said, if you don't tell me what happened to my family, I'm going to run away to Paris. And then Till told me that on July the 16th, they picked up my mother, my brother Adolphe, my brother Henri, and my sister Sabine. I was very angry at my mother. She didn't love me. Why didn't she take me with her? Why did she send me away? It took me a few years to realize that my mother loved me very much. She sent me away because she must have known that something was going on. She tried to save Sabine, but my aunt, Rachel, promised her a handbag and she wouldn't give it to her unless she was in Paris to receive it. So she got it on July the 15th. And the next day, she was taken away. They were taken to a place called Val d'Hiver. It's a convention center. They had 17,000 people plus of all ages, starting from infants to people in their 90s. It had 6 bathrooms. They covered 3 of the bathrooms. So in reality, they only had 3 bathrooms for 17,000 people. They put a tarp over the roof so that people could not look in. The situation, I don't have to tell you, was beyond words what lay on. No food, no sanitation, no air, no anything. From there, they were sent to a camp called Pithiviers, which is about 250 kilometers outside of Paris. They were hair was shaved, and they were in preparation for the camp in Germany. A German soldier fell in love with Sabine. As I mentioned, she had just turned the age of 15. He came knocking at our door in civilian clothes, and he brought out 3 letters at 3 different times. This time, the first letter, well, it shows the way they shaved my mother's hair at Dad's always, and Sabine said she was dirty, she was hungry, and she wanted out. He wanted to marry her. He was 19 years old. Even with her shaved hair, she was beautiful. He brought out 3 different letters, and on the 3rd letter, when my aunt told him that he could marry her as long as he got her out, she was on a convoy to Auschwitz. My mother was the first one sent to Auschwitz. My 2 brothers went afterwards, and Sabine was the last one. That was the last time I heard from my family. My aunt brought me back from the farm. What had happened, the Germans sent out an edict. Anyone watching a Jewish child, if you'll report them, they'll give you 300 francs. This farmer, whose name I do not remember, but bless her soul, because if she had reported me to the police, I would not be here today telling you my story. My aunt brought me back to Paris. And the first thing I wanted to do when I got to Paris was to go to my house. That was the day they were looting our apartment. I asked to go upstairs, but they kept saying, no, no, no. Madame Thiel, who was from Alsace-Lorraine, Cecile's mother, told them what a nice family we were. So this is how I got the pictures of my family. I did not take my doll. The most important thing for me was to take the pictures of my family, which is a gift that you can never, never replace. And I'm amazed that at the age of 9 years old, I had the presence to do that. Now I went to live with my aunt, and anyone over this 6th of July, can I get that? I want to show them the star. We had to wear the star that said Jew on it. What did that mean? It meant, this is the star. Can you see it all? Can everybody see it?
There you
It meant that we had an 8 o'clock curfew. It meant my aunt had she was rich. She had a radio and she had cold running water. They took away the radio. We had to turn it in. Outlet had a tricycle. They took away the tricycle. We were not allowed to have anything, any kind of amenities. Sometimes we were allowed to go to school, sometimes not. Sometimes my aunt was allowed to work, sometimes not. We were only allowed to go shopping for groceries between the hours of 3 and 4. We could not do anything else. Thank you. I went to school. Sometimes I didn't go to school. I just mentioned that. My aunt went to work. Sometimes she went to work, she didn't. My aunt would hear stories. We were in hiding 5 times for 5 days. I'm saying 5 times, 5 days in a cellar, pitch black cellar. Rats were running around us. To this day, if I see a mouse, I go ballistic. I have to tell you that I actually moved out of a house because that's how terrified I am of a mouse. We were in a convent, my cousin and I. We were almost baptized. As Mother Superior threw us out because my aunt would not allow us to be baptized and to have my first communion. So we came back full of lice. We were hungry. We used to take every little crumb we used to pick up. You didn't have to wipe the table because we were hungry. One Passover, we had 1 matzah and 1 egg with salt and water. And a woman used to come every time we ate. And I said to my aunt, why does she come when we're eating? So my aunt said, when you have a teaspoon of food, you take half of it and you give half of it away. So I was upset because instead of having 1/3 of a matzah, I now had 1/4 of a matzah. Instead of having 1/3 of the egg, I now had 1/4 of the egg. But that was a good lesson. It was a very good lesson. Learn to share, learn to give when somebody doesn't have. When I was in a pension, when I was in a convent, of course, my name was not Rachel, it was Christine. I kept changing identities. I want you to know I never made a mistake. I was always conscious of where I was and what my name was. What were they doing with all these people? Where did they send them away? I always felt my brothers were strong. My mother was not in the best of health. Maybe she would get sick, but my sister was so beautiful. Who would want to hurt somebody so beautiful? Of course they would come back. Always had hope. It was winter time. I was standing on line, groceries, and it was 5 minutes to 4, and this woman butt herself in front of me. And I gently tapped her and I said, excuse me, madam, I've been waiting online. And she saw my star and she said, you filthy Jew, you have the audacity to tell me that I haven't been waiting online. I'm going to call the Nazis and the Germans, not Nazis. I'm going to call the Germans and they're going to take you away. I started to beg. I was pleading. I was apologizing. By the time it was my turn, it was past 4 o'clock and I could not get the piece of fruit that the doctor said would help my aunt. I cried all the way home. my hands and my feet from the cold used to crack open and bleed. And I promised myself when the war would be over, no one would ever tell me what to do. Excuse me. As I say, where were those people going? My aunt was getting very, very nervous because he had taken most of the European Jews. The only thing that was left, oh, I forgot to mention, Pétain made a deal with Hitler that they could take all the European Jews, but they were to leave the French Jews alone. So there basically, there was such a small amount of people left in Paris. She heard of this, oh, I should start before. June 6, 1944, the beginning of the end, the invasion of Normandy. It still took a year and a half, but nevertheless, it was the beginning. So she heard of this Jewish orphanage in Le Mans dans la Sarthe. And she sent my cousin and I, and it was wonderful. This is the children, older children. This is me over here. And I think where's Arlette? She's right here. And this is me. And this is Arlette. We were 60 children. Only 3 parents came back, not 3 sets. 3 parents came back. We all lost our parents. We were all left orphans. We were putting on a show for May the 3rd. A German soldier was walking and heard children playing, and he came in and asked to speak to the director. And the director told him that we were children whose parents had been deported. He turned out he was Jewish. And he asked, when we saw that we were putting on a play, he asked if he could speak to somebody, and the director called me. I was to recite the Tabak Pushka by Sholem Aleichem. And I recited it for him, and he said, asked if he could bring people from the base, and he did. He brought 300 people from the base, and they bought all kinds of goodies. They bought grapefruits, they bought oranges, chocolate, and so forth and so on. We didn't know how to eat the grapefruits. We went to eat it with the skin, and we did not like it very much. We did remember how to eat an orange. Talking about an orange, that was a gift that I got one Hanukkah from my aunt, an orange. She had to sell her sheets and pillowcases and blankets so my cousin and I could each have an orange. And they came, we put on the show, and you can see some soldiers over here, right here. And I don't see, can you give me the picture of those 2 women? They're right there, yeah. These were the nurses, Malvina.
You need to hold it up higher.
Yeah, Malvina and Dottie. Malvina's Jewish. They came and they washed our hair because we all had lice. And they started to come and so forth and on. There were 3 American soldiers that wanted to bring me to the United States. And because Harry was the first one to come and he heard me, that was that, and so forth and so on. Anyway, he decided that he wanted me to bring me to the United States. He went back to the United States in 45, and through the American Joint Distribution Committee, by the way, which is a wonderful organization. They bought me. We were one of 14 children. We were brought to the that came on to the United States. What I didn't tell you is that before he left, I had broken my ankle, and he took me to the base. And when he took me to the base, he molested me. And many times after that, he brought me to the United States. He had a wife, Sylvia, and a daughter, Annabelle. Annabelle was 2.5 years old. They had a one-bedroom apartment, a living room, and a kitchen. I slept in a couch on the living room. He would leave his wife's bed and come to my bed. After 9 months, his wife threw me out. And that's when I went into foster home. He molested me all that time. This is him, and I don't like to see the picture. This is 47, it's still him. I was living with them. This is my passport picture. This is my cousin Lily. She had a very sad life. She committed suicide. And this is me in 1948. The war was finally over for us in France, 1945. And that's when the camps were opened. Auschwitz was opened. And as I mentioned before, and I'll repeat myself, I always thought that my brothers were so strong, they would come home. And my sister, so beautiful. I never thought that my mother would come back. This is for Goldman Hajat. As I don't know if you know, but the Germans kept accurate records. She was born 1901, it says Paris, Camp Pithiviers, and you to concentration camp on the 6th and 7th of August, 1942. This is for Adolphe Abraham. He was born April 20th, 1924 in Warsaw. Nuta and Raja Rabinovich, Paris 11e, rue du Faubourg Saint-Antoine, 275, to Camp Pithiviers, you to concentration camp on the 31st July 1942. Died there on the 17th of October 1942 at 9:30 p.m. Cause of death, enteritis of bodily weakness. This is for Henri. He was on the same convoy as Adolphe. August 29, 1926, Warsaw, Nathan Rajani Rabinovich. Rabinovich was my mother's maiden name. Paris 11e, Faubourg Saint-Antoine, 275, to Camp Pithiviers to use. Concentration camp on the 31st July 1942. That day on the 5th of January 1943 at 4:25 p.m. Cause of death, myocardial weakness. This is for Sabine, July 7th, 1929, Paris. That's not correct. It should be Warsaw. Paris 275, Faubourg Saint-Antoine, Camp Pithiviers concentration camp, Auschwitz on the 19th of August, 1942. What we know, we don't see a time of death for my mother and for my sister. When they got to Auschwitz, they were told that they would go to the showers. And they would tell them to fold their clothes neatly and tie their shoes together so that when they would come out, they would find them in the place that they left them. When in reality, they sent them into the showers and sent the pellets of gas, and people became asphyxiated. My younger brother Henri lived longer than Adolphe. That's what happened to my family. This is my husband, Milton. This was our 40th anniversary. We were in Acapulco celebrating. This is my oldest son, Neil. This is my daughter-in-law, Marcy. They're attorneys. Mark was also an attorney. He worked for Warner Brothers. This is him. He went to Princeton and Yale. He was gay, and he died of AIDS. He had an IQ of 162. He had an ability. If you were 2 years old, he was at your level. He was at your level. If you were 10, he was at your level. If you were 20, he was at your level. If you were 50, he was at your level. If you were 90, he was at your level. He was an incredible human being. It is a great loss to the world. This is me. This is my youngest granddaughter, and my oldest granddaughter. She too is a lawyer. And this is my youngest granddaughter, and she is in public, she is in public relations. This was my husband's family. My husband was sick. He died of diabetes, and he died on the same day as my father died in 1997. I have to tell you, I had absolutely wonderful in-laws. I sat shiver for my mother-in-law. She was a typical Yiddish mama. Every time I heard that song, my Yiddish mama, I used to cry. And this is Neil and my daughter-in-law, and these are our grandchildren and nephews and nieces. This is Mark's panel. As I mentioned, he worked for Warner Brothers, and they okayed the characters, and this is Mark in the middle. He died in 1992. I did the March of the Living. I did it twice. I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you've heard of the Warsaw Ghetto. Young people fought for 23 days, and the only way that those Nazis could stop them from fighting was to burn down the whole city of Warsaw. So this is all new city. However, the thing that's interesting, pardon me, the thing that's interesting is that this is the street where my parents would have been married, and approximately this would be the building where they would have had the reception. But they asked me to stand there because it says Miller's Art, which was really so incredible to find there. We're all child survivors. She came with her parents. She came with her parents. She did not. That's me. She was in Spain and converted, but reconverted to Judaism. She came with her mother. She came with her mother. She didn't. And we never had a slumber party, and we decided to have one. I visited Auschwitz twice. The second time, my son went with me. And when we went in to Auschwitz, and this is Albert Mark Frey, it's like, my son doesn't cry easily. But when he saw that, when he stepped in to Auschwitz, he started to cry, and he sensed this feeling of horror, which you do when you come in. You know that something horrific has happened here. I just want to share one story with you. I went to Medanec, and Medanec did not have any bathrooms. So you had to have a pop at the end of the day. And the last one to use it had to go empty it out by the fence. And the guard, because all the guards always have said that they were made to do what they were told. Now, the guard was all by himself. This is very important. And he did not like the way this man emptied out the pot. He made him take off his clothes and have him stand there till 8 o'clock in the morning because he didn't like the way he emptied out the pot. And would you believe, a miracle of miracles, this man survived. This is the kind of mentality that they had. They did not care for one human being except themselves. And I want to thank you for the intention you've given me. I will take questions if you have some. And lastly,
Let's stop share.
the doll that I never took with me. When I went to France, a friend of mine wrote a play about Mark and I, and it's called Beyond Me. You can find it on the internet.
It's very
You
small.
remember during the war, my name was Christine when I was in hiding. I picked up this doll and I went away with my friend Cecile. When I came home, this friend of mine was having a party and she said to me, "Oh, Christine, Cecile." When I bought this doll, she was in a box. I never knew what her name was, and I never bothered to look at the tag. And that's the last thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take questions either in the chat or
Brilliant.
if you can unmute yourselves in due course. There is a question on the chat, which is, when did you tell your husband and your sons both about what happened to your family during the Holocaust and what you endured, the abuse that you endured afterwards?
My husband knew from the very beginning. And my children, as they started to get 6 and 7, I started to tell them about the Holocaust because I have pictures of this soldier that brought me over, had pictures made from my mother and my father and my sister. And my oldest son would look at the picture and say, "Your mother and your father have their eyes closed, but your sister has her eyes open." So I was always searching. So they knew a little bit about the Holocaust. That's when I told them.
And about what you endured after the war?
Actually, when you're molested, you carry your guilt. And I carried that guilt. I did not tell my husband that I was molested till I was 57 years old. I was ashamed.
Oh.
And if anybody who is listening, and I hope no one in your group is molested, you are not responsible. It's the person that does it, not you, particularly when you're a child.
Thank you very much. There's one more sort of question on that. And again, I always make the caveat that I take the questions, I don't filter them, but you can choose not to answer. And that is, you suffered at the hands of the Germans, who were your known enemies, as it were.
Right.
You suffered at the hands stuff that you shouldn't have suffered from, a liberator.
Right.
To whom do you feel more hatred or disdain towards? Your known enemy or your friend that turned into, if I put it, an enemy?
The Germans, and unfortunately, they're all passing on. It's too bad that many of them didn't get punished for what they did. But because of their ages, I would think there are very few left. I hated, and I still hate the Germans of 90 years and over. I cannot forgive them. And I don't want to forgive. It's not that I can't. I don't want to forgive them.
Yeah.
As far as the soldier, he did bring me to the United States.
But she's a nice old girl. I mean, you know, she's really speak for.
David,
So-
can I speak later?
Yeah.
So in some respects, I don't forgive him,
I didn't know it was on.
but
Speak later.
I'm
Miss-
thankful that he brought me to the United States because it's been a good, in spite of everything that I went through, it's a good country and I'm happy to be living here.
Thank
I'm
Oh.
sorry, I liked him.
Thank you very, very much. Is there any questions from the audience that you want to ask? And then I invite you to unmute yourselves and ask. Otherwise, I will draw the evening to a close.
Yeah, I've got one question. How come the French people, the French authority let you go to America? Joint is something very well organized. How come they let you go with that soldier?
Because I was a child, I was being adopted. My aunt was the one that, she was my guardian. She's the one that okayed for me to go. So the French government let me go.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I think, as I always say when I'm privileged to chair these occasions, it is however many times a survivor tells of what they endured and what they experienced, it is a very, very difficult thing. And we will all remember you, we'll remember what happened to you. We are awed and admire your strength, your courage to speak to us and to share your life with us, to share what happened to you. And we really are very, very privileged. And I think the thought that hangs in my mind is that, as you said, I think in the testimony here or in other testimony that I did as part of my research, not many survivors have the photos of their family, and that you as a girl of 9, not knowing what was to come, but had the prescience and the presence of mind to take that, I think says a lot. You talk about your late son's IQ and qualities. I'm sure I don't know if you have the expression in America, but certainly have in English, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I'm sure I can see where he got those qualities that you state in his memory. And really, we are enormously, enormously grateful that you spoke to us and that you shared your experiences with us. Thank you very, very much.
Can I just add something? I hope that God will let me live with a sound brain until I die, so I can keep telling my history. I sometimes feel that God spared me so I can tell my story. And I think it's important for people to know, particularly in our times now.
Well,
thank you again for giving me the opportunity, Alan.
Thank you, and it's really a privilege. And thank you also finally before I go to Rabbi Garson that made the introduction. And I'm always grateful to him and to J Roots for telling us about you. And he made a fine shidduch, as they say. You've wowed our community. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Shkoyach.
Bye.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for an amazing story.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. Thank you.